Now, commodities posting a rally today. This coming after Goldman Sachs says it was turning more bullish on raw materials and commodities, of course, key for continued growth in emerging markets, particularly China. My next guest has literally just returned from China. John Licata, Chief Commodity Strategist at Blue Phoenix, also the editor of Commodity Chronicles. John, good to have you with us. You're over your jet lag a little bit?
I'm doing a lot better than I was before.
Well, you'll crash. Don't worry. It'll happen. Now, you were in Beijing and in Shanghai. You spent, what, 9 days there?
That's right.
And when you flew, you said you flew into Beijing, it was like flying into pea soup.
The smog was really horrific. You hear about stories on TV related to Beijing, I mean, especially during the Olympics, but to witness it firsthand was quite remarkable. So to see how they're trying to get past that, and when I met with some multinationals around that had a presence there, whether it was GM or Intel specifically, that whole embracing of greener energy was certainly the theme that I got walking away from the trip.
All right, so they've got to embrace green energy. How are they doing this? Is they doing it with a combination of government subsidies as well as, just trying to encourage the population to adopt a greener approach to consuming?
Well, first of all, when I was there, it seems like most of the change that China's trying to develop is through monetary policy, not actual change. It's the actual change that I think gets China to a new level of growth beyond Beijing and Shanghai, perhaps in different cities like Xi'an and Shengdao. Those, the secondary cities, to me, are going to be a major area of growth. But Intel is using their semiconductor technology with photovoltaic silicon dots that they're putting to increase solar panel technology, so that the dots can actually absorb more heat from the solar panel and help distribute it. And that's been one of the biggest problems with solar panel technology. And General Motors has been very, very big at introducing electric cars. As you know, we have the Chevy Volt here. But within the next 5 years, they have an aggressive plan to roll out nearly 60 cars. A majority are going to be electric. And Pimm, I couldn't believe it, Buick is the largest selling car in China.
Yes, yeah, that's quite well done, right?
The reason behind that was because the emperor used to drive a Buick, and people try to emulate that. So I wouldn't be surprised if GM actually moves toward a more electric vehicle under the Buick brand in the next few years.
In talking to the leaders of these multinational corporations, do you get the impression that the reason they're focused on selling green and energy-efficient products is because they know that they're going to maintain good relations with the Chinese government, because this is what the government wants, not necessarily what consumers want?
I actually think it's a combination of government and consumers. We've actually polled a lot of executives when we were there. We actually met with executives from Walmart as well. And Walmart doesn't consider themselves an American company in China. They consider themselves a Chinese company, and they are trying to adopt the Chinese standards. And if I'm visiting a store and seeing how they're implementing baggage and everything around recycling program, the people of China want to embrace the technology, and they'll welcome foreign companies to come in and teach them their standards that hopefully they will adopt.
And John, you were telling me about meeting with some of the largest multinational corporations in the world. One, for example, Alcatel, and how they are trying to figure out how to take advantage of the popularity and the desire for greener, more efficient energy use in China. Tell me about Alcatel, what they're doing.
Well, Alcatel was a very interesting company. In many regards, I think they're challenged. I think they were a little bit complacent versus their peers and try to adopt to newer technologies. But what I found fascinating was a device called the Cube.
The Cube.
And it looked like a Rubik's Cube-like device. What that does is they're trying to put that on top of buildings to replace antennas. They feel that they have the opportunity to embrace the mobile industry, and that this technology can basically be equivalent to a carbon footprint of 15 million cars. But the problem is patent protection. They filed for a few hundred patents, Pimm. It's very interesting how that's going to be developing. This could be a game-changing technology, but it could be duplicated. I think that's pretty much the key question.
Tell me about wages in China and what your perception is there.
Being here and hearing stories of cheap labor in China, that's something that we've always heard about. But being there, the aggressive nature of wages is starting to take root, and companies in the Western world are trying to figure out what's the way that they can move around rising wages in China. The wages in China are still lower than what we see here in the United States, but Pimm, they're growing very quickly. And I think that kind of forces American companies, European multinationals as well, to try to figure out how best to utilize workers, because many of the Chinese workers are coming here, getting their masters from American universities and going to China and using that against American multinationals. So it was interesting to see that paradigm shift and develop, which I think is be an interesting story over the next 5 years.
Commodities. We had the Goldman Sachs note coming out today, bullish on commodities. We looked at copper imports into China. They're down 48% year in April. You seeing any let up in commodity demand?
Well, I mean, not from me being there. I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be a shift away from premier precious metals like perhaps silver. Maybe look at more of the rare earth, which China has 98% of the rare earth is in China. So I think maybe metals like vanadium and indium are going to be the stories for the power grid, solar panel technology, and electric cars, which I think is going to be a huge story in the future.
All right, we're going to let you get some sleep. I want to thank you very much. John Licata joining us from Blue Phoenix, just back from China.